is going on, everybody? It is another episode of the Mainly Broncos podcast, and we are, let's see, it is May, June. We are 2 months away from training camp getting underway. So we kind of figured that with the schedule being released last week, that we would take a stab at the so early training camp roster bubble candidates for the Denver Broncos. We'll do it more of like a depth chart focus, kind of like as we kind of lead things up to training camp. But just it feels like the natural thing to talk about. Like aside from schedule predictions, it's probably the natural thing to talk about, right? Like once that's all figured out, the schedule's all figured out, well, how can this team put forth the best roster, which we all know the Denver Broncos, not according to the very 5% of people that don't feel this way, the Denver Broncos do have one of the best rosters in the entire NFL. So kind of like figuring out, who are some of the players that are either undrafted free agents or players that are veterans that are going to be cut candidates. We're going to be talking all about that, right here on the show. And of course, we have the gang here. We got Brandon, who decided not to wait until like the very last end of the show to join on this one. He decided to hop in for the very beginning. So thank you so much, Brandon.
It's because this time I didn't have to go pick up a required jury summons from an old address that they sent it to.
That is still wild. But you can follow Brandon at Brandon Miller PO. Again, no relation to Brandon Miller, the basketball player who is in the NBA. And speaking of basketball, it is the basketball coach himself.
Full relation of Von Miller,
though. And speaking of basketball and a basketball coach, over there it is Jordan Lopez at Jordan T. Lopez, and it's going to be a loaded show. It's going to be a fun show. And it's nice to actually get a chance to talk with the boys for a full show, because it's been a bit. I mean, obviously, I know you joined late, Brandon, but it's been probably 3 weeks since we all kind of did a full squad show.
Yeah, it's been a
while.
Glad
to be
back. So first things first. How you guys doing? I guess here's the thing. Did you get your jury summons figured out?
So here's the thing that I learned, because I actually have never gotten jury summons before. So the reason it took me so long is because, again, it was sent to an address I no longer live at in a county I no longer live in. And so you can request to be dismissed, because if you don't live in the county you're called to serve in, you can't be on the jury. So I submitted that. It got approved. I was dismissed. I don't have to be on that jury. But then when I got dismissed, they were like, oh, you'll get another jury summons at your correct address in the next few weeks. So apparently, for my county, when you get selected for jury summons, you're selected to be on a jury. It doesn't necessarily mean it's that jury. You have to be on a jury somewhere. And so now I have to be on a jury in my county. So that's nice.
So like you were overall so you were actually selected, like you've already because they've gone through the possible numbers for you, and like you've officially been chosen. Like is that?
Here's the thing I don't know, because I've never gotten jury summons before, is like if I'm summoned and I get a number, all that stuff, like I don't know if that means that they want me to be on, like I'm selected to be on the jury, or if it's like you're like an alternate, or I don't actually know for sure yet. I don't even have the new one, so I don't know. But apparently, like, it's not just like oh, well, you were selected, but you don't live here, so bye-bye. It was like, oh, no, you were selected. You don't live in this county anymore, so we're going to send you another one for your county for a different jury. So it's like, I don't know. I guess maybe.
Well, because I was selected for jury duty, if you will, and I was given a number. And then the day when they were choosing whether or not people were actually being selected, I was one number away.
Okay.
One number away. And so I was not selected.
Maybe not then. I don't know.
Because that's what they did for me, is like they kind of gave you like a little selection of numbers on the phone, and they'd be like, okay, if you are numbers 9 to 16, you're selected for jury duty or whatever. If you are 1 to 8, and I was 8, you're not selected.
So they called you because I have to go in person.
It was kind of like a phone thing, I think, for me. That's.
We'll see. I mean, even if I have to do it, I have to get paid. So legally, I just would almost I would rather not have to do it because I work from home, and I'd rather just work from home and do my actual job. But
yeah,
we'll see.
It should be. It's gonna be interesting. Jordan, how are you doing? Your basketball season's all kind of gearing up, I assume, or in full swing on your end.
Oh yeah, the summer stuff are about to start back up. So it's been I've been having a little break as of late, but that's gonna start ramping up soon and stuff like that. But I'm full-fledged in baseball season, if we're being quite honest.
Yeah, Brandon. Nice fireplace.
Thank you. Yeah. Do you like the mini grand piano?
I never really thought of you as a pianist. So
I actually did play piano for like 5 years, but it was when I was very young, and I do not remember anything, and I don't have a piano anymore.
What did you say, Cam?
What's that?
Well, what did Camp say? A what?
Pianist. That's the actual term.
Oh.
Yeah.
What'd you think I said?
He probably thought you said something else.
I heard something else.
Full disclosure, people. That is not his actual. He is not there. Yeah. So full disclosure. It's just a wall. It's just a wallpaper background.
Yeah. This is not my actual home, unfortunately.
Who knows? If he actually had that background, he may not have been selected for a jury summit. You never know.
What was that guy that like would always record videos in his garage, and he was standing in front of like a Lamborghini, and he was like, "Well, this is how I got this Lamborghini." And it was like the most fake scam imaginable. Like, it was so obvious. That's what I should do.
Well, there was one person that I know of, like, I think it was like suspected of like Broncos Twitter, like the last couple of years or whatever, and like he it was like he was like this big massive Bronco fan, and then like it kind of broke within the last like year or two that he was basically scamming people using Getty images of like places that like that people thought he owned, but he was using Getty images and stuff like that.
I've never heard of this.
It was big. It was big.
I don't remember this at all.
Yeah, and so it's like it was kind of one of those things like he kind of scammed a lot of people in a sense of using Getty images, and lo and behold, like there was some people that kind of caught on to it and started passing the word around, and sooner rather than later he deactivated his account.
Yeah.
So
don't remember that one.
Yeah. So all right, boys, you want to talk about some training camp battles, maybe roster bubble candidate, because like the other part of this too is like they all kind of like coincide, right? The roster bubble candidates all coincide with the fact of training camp battles. So I pulled up the depth chart on I believe it's ourlads.com, because they decided to list a majority of the players, I'd say, even undrafted free agents, obviously draft picks, if you will. If you were to rank, Jordan, we'll just start with you. If you were to rank some of the top training camp battles, how would you do it? And Brandon, this is going to be the same question for you, but just how would you guys rank it? And then, frankly, is there one that is a surprising training camp battle that maybe not a lot of people would maybe look toward?
Well, my top training camp battle in terms of just where they fall on the depth chart, I look at tight end because there's just a lot of questions there. I'm obviously very big on Justin Jolly, and that draft selection, I very much do believe he can make an impact in year one, similar to like a Harold Fan.
Jolie or Jolly?
Jolly, Jolly, you can name it whatever you want. I really haven't heard a correct pronunciation.
I've heard it both ways. I don't know. We should
Yeah.
get him on the podcast to confirm.
Right.
That's a great way, Brandon.
Exactly.
Just got him on the pod.
Throw him in the fire.
But yeah, I'm
They'll
looking
probably
at
say it's actually Achan.
or Bijan or Bijan. Yeah, I mean it's crazy. But yeah, I'm looking at the tight end room. I want to know who's going to be getting the majority of the snaps. I want to know where Justin Jolly falls in line. I want to know where Nate Atkins, if I'm assuming he's still on the team, where he falls in line. And then guys on the back end, which is like a Lucas Kroll, a Caleb Lohner, who Champagne singled out the other day and said that he's improving a lot. Even our 7th round pick that we got, Dalen Bentley, where he falls in line. So that tight end room is very intriguing to me and how that's going to shape out.
Brennan.
Definitely one that I had on my list. When I first started thinking about this, it was kind of difficult because like even going into this offseason, but we did almost nothing in besides the Waddle trade. We don't have that many holes on the roster. So it's like, okay, there's not that many. Like it feels kind of buttoned up to an extent, but there's a few that stuck out to me that are, I don't want to say like for sure happening, but like my number one is it's kind of like my 1A and my 1B because they're both in the running back room, but for different reasons. I would say my 1A is like Jaleel versus Tyler Beatty, like or Bidet, whatever. It's another person.
Who knows? He might actually
he might say that it's Achan. He's a third running back to say that their name is actually Achan. One of them makes sense. Anyway, to me, it's McLaughlin or Bidet. I don't know what that's going to come down to, but one of those guys is absolutely on the roster bubble, depending on who wins. And like I would say, honestly, the loser is probably going to get cut. And I feel like it's probably Bidet. I think Jaleel just has more juice that he's able to contribute to the offense as a whole, whereas Bidet is like maybe better as a special teamer. But I think that that's going to be one of the bigger ones that is just kind of going to be interesting to watch, even though it's like, obviously not the starting running back. But, you know, with this offense, you never know who the starting running back is. It's just going to be a 4-headed monster, 3-headed monster. The other one that I think is just kind of interesting is like J.K. Dobbins is pretty obviously the entrenched starter. Like they love him. He's going to be the guy. But Jonah Coleman versus RJ Harvey in a little way. Like I'm not saying that like RJ Harvey's on the roster bubble, but Jonah Coleman was drafted for a reason, and Jonah Coleman is better in pass protection. He's very good as a receiver, which I will say I think was RJ Harvey's also best trait last year, and the thing he was best at. And like, he was also good in the red zone, but again, that's another area where Jonah Coleman is just kind of, I'm not going to say better, but he's just also very good. Like it seems like Jonah Coleman also does a lot of the things that RJ Harvey does, but he also pass protects.
It just gives you better options because rather than having RJ Harvey as your red zone, you have Harvey, you have Coleman, you have Dobbins. So it's just
and it's to me, it's really more like who's the 1B in that? Is it RJ Harvey? Is it Jonah Coleman? I don't know. And it'll be interesting to watch how that plays out. They're both going to get carries. They're both going to have a role. They're both going to be probably fairly heavily utilized, but I am just intrigued. But Bidet and McLaughlin to me is kind of like one of those guys getting cut. I think it's probably Bidet, and it'll be interesting to see what that shapes out to be.
You know, it's interesting because I think a lot of people, because I think there's an interesting conversation because like specific to the roster and the moves that they made in a very shocking way, to a certain degree, is almost like the same conversation we had last year, right? Do you guys remember when we asked the same question? It was around this particular point in time. It may have been like a month later when we asked, like, who do the Denver Broncos actually have a surprise cut candidate on this roster? I think it's the same thing that kind of applies this year. I don't think they really have I don't really think they have a surprise cut candidate on their roster. The amount of players that they signed to a $1 million deal, $3 million deal, monies that they can get off of, in terms of contracts. You know, uh, I mean, and the only one you could probably confidently say, as much as it was a big head scratcher, would be Adam Troutman, right? Like if they moved on from Adam Troutman, that probably would be a surprise cut candidate. But given the 3 year deal and the money, it's not expensive money per se, but given the amount of money they kind of invested in that, was a big surprise. So it's really hard to see them moving off of that. But guys like Nate Atkins, Lucas Kroll, even a Justin Sternad to a certain extent, I think, you can definitely say are rather safe. And I think and the way I'm trying to like define this is, I think there's a way that I think we want a training camp battle, right? Like we want a training camp battle of the linebacker position. I just don't know if there will be a linebacker battle, when it comes to like those two starters. You know what I mean? And so I think it'll probably start out, right? Like it'll start out with the guys that we all expect based on what they want and green dot and everything for that defense between Alex Singleton and Justin Sternad. Like expecting that, right? But I think that we all want, as fans, a competition there, because we would love to see guys like Red Murdoch really emerge, into that linebacker room. And maybe by season's end, this is what I would kind of maybe expect at some point, is he's starting to have a little bit more of some meaningful snaps as the season is progressing a little bit. And then Torian York is another one. I think the way that we looked at it last week is just like, if you're looking at a recruiting class, they really did such a great job of evaluating both of those linebackers, because they really complement each other so well that it makes you wonder, is that like, if you are projecting, is this a linebacker duo of the future? And so it's one where it's like, okay, if you are projecting, and due to the fact that Torian York is only 20 years old, which is crazy, maybe he kind of redshirts this year, but it's really Red Murdoch who kind of emerges, at the midway point to the end of this, it's the end of the season with some meaningful snaps, not starting, but meaningful snaps. And then it's at that training camp of year 2 in that system where you really start to kind of see that and everything. So I don't know. I had to kind of define it that way, because it's like, I don't know if there will be a training camp battle of the linebackers, because that's going to be one of the number one things that all of us will watch in training camp. But I just don't know if we can definitively say, right, like that there will be one. It's one of those, like, we want there to be one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I for sure would want a little battle there within the inside linebacker room, just because I know everybody has had their frustrations with Alex Singleton and how that linebacker room has produced as of late. But I think it's safe to say that Singleton is going to be the starter heading into week 1. It's just hoping Murdoch can accumulate some snaps to the point where he can continue to progress throughout the season and hopefully steal some snaps from either Singleton or Sternad or whatever the case may be. But I would for sure love someone like Red Murdoch to get that chance.
What's up, Darian? I do think there is one fringe surprise cut that could happen. Although I don't know if it would necessarily be much of a surprise, but to me it's Drew Sanders, because Drew Sanders is kind of in this weird position of he's making the switch to outside linebacker. We're like, I don't even know if it's like a full switch. Like, are they still planning on kind of playing him a little bit inside? I don't even know. I thought it was like going to be primarily more outside. And it's, first of all, it's like you feel like you haven't seen that much from him. He had that interception, which was awesome. But other than that, like, he never really stuck. And he also just had injury issues. So it's almost like Drew Sanders versus himself is part of it. Like, if he can stay on the field, great. But then it's also Drew Sanders versus everyone else that you have at pass rusher, which is a pretty stacked room when you're looking at it. Like,
well, we talked about
who taken off the field.
when we talked about linebacker, Jonah Ellis, we think
Oh, that's right.
is moving to inside. Although maybe he kind of threw everybody a curveball because he was posting clips of his get off.
See, I was gonna say, I think he's the one who's going to maybe do a little bit of both. Like he's gonna kind of moonlight on both the inside and
Like
the
an
outside.
off-ball.
Yeah. So I don't know. I feel like Drew Sanders just, I don't know. Is there a place for him on this roster as it's currently constructed? I don't know. And if he can stay healthy, or like if he can't stay healthy, I could see him being cut. It would suck. I like Drew Sanders. He's a freak athlete, but it is just what do you do with him? Like, are you just going to hold up a roster spot that?
Why do you say surprise though? Because like,
well, that's why I say it's like I don't know if it's necessarily a surprise.
Yeah. Because like I don't think it would. Yeah, I think probably the biggest one, if you like of all the people, I think that's probably on the offensive side of the ball that you could label as a surprise cut candidate, is the player that everybody is pumping up because of the relationship that he has with Davis Webb, and that is Evan Ingram.
Mm-hmm.
I think Evan Ingram would probably be the only one on the offensive side of the ball that could probably, be regarded as a cut candidate. I don't think he's cut, but you just never know. You did draft 2 tight ends, and it seems like when you kind of look at it that way, that Bentley and Jolie, or Jolly, depending on, if you're Jordan, you want to call him Jolly.
I like it better.
What's easier to say, probably a little bit. But like you can project a little bit and be like, okay, well, you have a tight end room of 1 and 2 with Jolie and Bentley in the future. And we all know that Evan Ingram is in the beginning part of his 30s. So I think it's just, that's probably a little bit of maybe some low hanging fruit as well. Maybe of like with Evan Ingram too.
Well, Spotrac in the offseason did a whole thing on the financials for the Broncos and candidates for bubble candidates, extension candidates, and all that. They had Evan Ingram at the top of bubble candidates. So it would not surprise me at all if he's a surprise cut candidate, even though I would think a team would try to get him via trade and not off, the waiver wire or free agency, because I do think though there can be a little market for Ingram. Obviously, you're not going to trade a massive or a premium asset for him, but you can get, a late day 3 pick or whatever for Evan Ingram. So, but yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he's not on the roster, week 1 and he's somewhere else.
Well, and
to me, that's another one of those surprise cuts, because I don't even know if I'd be that surprised. Now, what would shock me is if Adam Troutman or Nate Atkins get cut, because their position on this roster is cemented in iron, apparently.
I don't know about Atkins. Troutman, yes, but
I'd be surprised.
I would be surprised. I wouldn't be mad. But yeah, I think Adam Troutman, if he gets cut, I'm like, the world is ending. Evan Ingram, I don't know if it'd be that surprising. It would be. I think that would be. It'd be a little strange for sure. But that's a good one. I definitely think, yeah, when I mentioned Drew Sanders, I was like, is it a surprise? I don't know.
No.
But
well,
Evan Ingram is a good one.
And if Ingram is either cut or traded, that means Jolly or Bentley or even Loner had a very, very good training camp.
Loner probably specifically. Just because the amount that, Sean went out of his way, to talk about him in rookie minicamp of all things. And full disclosure, to Darian, I don't expect Ingram cut, but it's definitely one within kind of following along. By the way, Darian just created a YouTube channel, so make sure you hit the subscribe button for Darian's YouTube channel. So Darian, if you're in here still, drop your YouTube channel. It might be if it's your handle there. Make sure people hit the subscribe button for you, as well as the MHRT Network.
Evan Ingram will be 32 before the start of the regular season.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah.
But he's the Joker. You can't cut him.
I will say, I will say though, I'm excited about it. Just because I think that given the fact of what Davis Webb talked about, or I should say Ben DiNucci talked about through Davis Webb on Kay Adams, it kind of lends me to the idea that, you know, we're looking at the idea of maybe a little bit more of a spread. And I talked about that. Like I've actually talked about that. And like you're probably talking a little bit more of like a spread or what the New Orleans Saints used to do with Breeze, where their version of running the ball isn't really a run heavy offense, but the extension of the running game, which is players like getting the ball to Jonah Coleman, RJ Harvey, J.K. Dobbins in the passing game, which are extensions of the running game.
Mm-hmm. You got a pretty good 3-headed monster to get that to. Jonah Coleman in the passing game is like spicier than I realized. It's fun.
He's not RJ Harvey like explosive, but it's definitely one where you have a two-headed monster. So when you kind of look at it, it's going to continue because obviously we kind of hit a little bit of a small little tangent on there, but like let's look a little bit on the and we talk about some of this training camp battle because they're all kind of like intertwined. On the defensive side of the ball, right? And I will say, I think the mark of a good roster when you have training camp battles, the mark of a good roster is the training camp battles of depth positions. Like on the offensive side of the ball, I'd say one of the better forms to actually look at this is like the swing tackle position. That's like would be a training camp battle, but it's not one that's going to be shaken out as this idea of like, oh wow, you're having a starting spot that's being replaced, right? But I think where it's going to be a little bit interesting is, and it's not so much like a training camp battle if we're going to go offensive side of the ball. There is like I'm curious to see what position Cage Casey lines up at, like specifically. We think he's going to be a guard. They did announce him as a guard in the draft. But they said he can play guard, he can play center, he can play tackle. He's like the Joker of the offensive line, if you will. But going into the defense, I will say like I don't necessarily know if it's a training camp, like camp cut roster, that kind of thing. Like, but as far as like a camp battle. I think the other side of it that gets a little bit easy for people to probably realize is the corner room. And obviously it's not so much PS2, but it's like, where is this development at with Jade Barron, Riley Moss, Jaquan McMillan now that Barron is now entering the second year in that system? Where are we at, right? Like, where are we at with that? Like, and because I think that's the other things that people are projecting is that Riley Moss, he'll be here probably this year. The question is just what are we forecasting in the future for Riley, his contract and everything? Because then it would be this particular offseason, this particular training camp where you're getting some ideas of, well, if they do move on from Moss, Barron, does he move outside? So it's going to be very interesting on that cornerback room. So, like I said, not exactly the roster cut candidates, but in terms of training camp battles and how it could shake out, would probably be the corner room as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like Riley Moss may be an interesting one. I don't see him getting cut, obviously, but maybe let's say there's a training camp injury somewhere else and someone's very thin at the cornerback room. Does someone give up a premium asset for someone like Riley Moss, knowing that we drafted a first-round corner the year before, and he's kind of, waiting in the wings to get his chance. So it is a little bit interesting. I don't think it happens, but I don't think Payne would hang up the phone. I think you would listen. But again, it just has to be the right offer.
Yeah. That is, by the way, Nebraska Cornhusker legend, I'd assume, Richie Incognito, and Raider legend Richie Incognito. So good luck, Jack, and go Broncos. Brandon?
Yeah, that's going to be definitely interesting to watch because, man, with Riley Moss, I don't know, like the other kind of thing that, other than Jade Barron, that is making that a little more interesting and throwing kind of a wrinkle into just that room, I would say, and kind of the secondary in general, is Chris Abrams' drain. Like, what are they going to do with him? Is he going to kind of stay in that sort of, I don't even know what to call him. It wasn't like a star role. Like, he didn't move around that much, but he kind of played outside. He played a little bit inside.
He played every.
Like, I think he played everything.
He touched linebacker.
linebacker.
He touched linebacker for. Now, granted, a lot of that was injuries, but he did touch linebacker for like, I think it was like 5 snaps at one point in the game.
And that's where it's interesting, because like, you kind of think that they want Jade Barron to be that star kind of joker chess piece, whatever, on the defensive side of the ball. But that is sort of what Chris Abrams' drain did. But like, he played pretty well when he played outside. Is he maybe going to be like the Riley Moss heir apparent? Is it going to be him or Barron, depending on like which one of them loses that chess piece duel? Like, is that something that's going to happen? I don't know. Riley Moss is interesting to project and look at.
Yeah. I think everybody kind of wants the idea that Riley Moss could be a safety, but that's the other side of this too, right? Where the other thing I want to kind of call people back into remembrance of, specific of Sean Payton, is that when Jade Barron was drafted, he specifically drafted Malcolm Jenkins a while back when it came to, specific when he was with the New Orleans Saints. And what is the one thing we remembered the most, aside from the fact he went to the Ohio State University, is that he was a versatile defensive secondary piece, right? Like, he could play corner, he could play safety. So I wonder if it's like, maybe we're speculating too much about the idea of like, oh, well, Barron could play the outside, when it's just one where he'll just be their simple chess piece that, that can be a safety and corner type of flexibility for you. And so that is something I'm at least wondering about. But obviously, we got to see that plan kind of shake out. And so again, that's not necessarily maybe a training camp battle per se, but it's definitely probably one of the largest questions we are all asking ourselves: is the plan for Barron?
I do agree with that, and I want to switch it on the other side of the ball.
Safety or
No,
offense?
Offensive side, and actually the people that they cover, the wide receiver room, and everyone understands that Jalen Waddle is the top guy, then it's Sutton. But how does it fall after that? Are we actually going to have Marvin Mims be the wide receiver 3 that he was supposed to be, and it just hasn't panned out? Is it going to be Troy Franklin, which knocks Marvin Mims down to wide receiver 4? What happens with wide receiver 5, even wide receiver 4? Like, I wonder how that is going to pan out, because I know everybody has their level fair with Pat Bryant, but also Sean Payne has his level fair with Lil Jordan Humphrey as well, who's also still on the roster, if anybody was still wondering. But I'm very, very curious for that back end of the wide receiver room.
The team is really bullish. Sean specifically is really bullish on Pat Bryant. I mean, I know Jordan, you said what you said, but I mean, they are really bullish on him. I mean, the moment he came back from his injury, and his injuries are probably like his largest scare, but the moment he came back from that injury, I believe it was in that Jags game, and he came back healthy before he got injured again in that Bills game, they featured him really heavily in that first drive. And then after that first drive was when he got banged up, but he had 3 catches for 32 yards, all in one drive, when he was back. So, yeah. So what would you say on that, Brandon, as far as like the wide receiver room? Because I think that like that's probably one of the exciting parts for me. And it's when DiNucci talked about that with Kay Adams today, I'd almost say like, well, if you're going with this idea of the spread up tempo, it's not so much anymore a conversation of who's going to be your wide receiver 3 or 4 or 5, etc. Because when you have a spread up tempo, you're going to have a a plethora of options at wide receiver 3, meaning it could be Marvin Mims against the Seattle Seahawks, or it could be Pat Bryant against the Los Angeles Rams, or it could be Troy Franklin against the Jacksonville Jaguars in week 2. I think that the options are I think the options are basically going to be one where it'll interchange week to week if they are doing a bit of a spread up tempo, because they're just going to have a lot of mouths to feed within that wide receiver room.
Yeah, I mean, this one would be like a true shocking cut, is if it's Lil Jordan Humphrey. He hasn't played fewer than 36% of snaps in the past 3 years, which is insane to actually think about. But that would be shocking. But it's like it's either that or he's like, you're carrying 6 wide receivers and he's one of them. And at that point, it's like, do you really want to do that? I mean, I guess you could, but it's definitely interesting, something to watch. And like, you would kind of look at it and think, okay, well, you slot in Jalen Waddle and everyone else just kind of moves down one, but that doesn't really work because you have 3 guys who were all like in the same grouping of Pat Bryant, Marvin Mims, and Troy Franklin, and they're all used in different ways. So it's like, okay, it's not just like as simple as Waddle is the 1, Sutton is the 2, etc. Like, I don't know what that's going to look like. There is probably no way that Lil Jordan Humphrey is not on this roster. So it'll be interesting.
I don't know, Darian. I mean, I actually think there's a legitimate world they keep 6 wide receivers this year. Because that's the side of it too. If they are going spread up tempo, and it's Davis Webb's it isn't Davis Webb's offense. It's just one where he will be calling plays that is of a Sean Payton offense, and then drumming and then trimming down, right, like the verbiage and everything. That's one of the biggest things Danucci talked about today, was like trimming down the verbiage and the wording of the plays and everything. So, but if it is a spread up tempo, he comes from the tree. Of Texas Tech Mike Leach. We have to remember that, and also of where Sean Payton is at, right? So I think that there's a very real scenario where maybe they don't even actually. If there's a scenario here, maybe they don't actually even have a fullback. They brought Adam Prentice back, but like maybe there's a world where they do keep a Nate Atkins, but you roll with the idea of he's a bit of a Swiss Army knife, player that you could do anything with as far as that tight end room. And, and you just have a lot of playmakers at your disposal. I mean, I do think Prentice is a bit underappreciated, and that just goes to the nature of the position. Fullbacks get forgotten about a lot. But I just do wonder, because everybody talked about this transition to 12, 13 personnel. The spread up tempo is not that, right? Like the spreading up tempo is not that at all.
I will also mention that if we do keep 6 wide receivers, maybe that 6th wide receiver is Lil Jordan Humphrey. And then also you play it with, if you keep 4 tight ends, Lil Jordan Humphrey can also be that 4th tight end, because we've heard those rumors of maybe he's going to make the switch. Obviously, he has
agent said that.
Yeah, so he has had, there's been talks about it on how maybe he should do it and stuff like that. I wouldn't mind that if he's the 6th wide receiver and the 4th tight end. Obviously, a good special teamer, but I wouldn't mind that at all.
I do think this is also going to be like a good litmus test of like how much is this Davis Webb's offense now, because does Davis Webb love Lil Jordan Humphrey? I don't know.
Right. Yeah. And so to the tight end question, I think there's probably a way you also say it of how many tight ends do they keep, but also who are those specific tight ends? That's where we don't know the answer. I think they keep 4, but there's a group of 4 that I would specifically want, right? Like there's a specific 4 I want them to have as their 4. And it's one where I think Adam Troutman is on the team, and I already outlined that as far as specifics and contract and stuff. But what I would want is the Troutman, Evan Ingram, Justin Jolie, and Dallin Bentley as your four. You have your Caleb Lohner option with the practice squad. You keep Prentice as your fullback. You can use him on even past situations, in the shotgun, and stuff kind of like what even the Green Bay Packers used to do when John Kuhn, the fullback for Green Bay, was a part of that, and he was almost like, and I think the Broncos even used to do that. But you kind of put him in, your shotgun sets, and he would almost be like an extension of your running back, but he's basically just, mass protecting, if you will. So you have that, and you move on from Nate Atkins and Lucas Kroll, the best player in your team. Because I'm just looking at it just from the contracts, who they drafted, because they drafted 2, and the contracts of Lucas Kroll and Nate Atkins. If they value Nate Atkins so much, in my opinion, they would have signed him to the Adam Troutman deal. That's my opinion. Because if they valued him so much, I mean, they valued him enough to bring him back, but if they valued him so much, they would have signed him to more than a 1-year deal, and they didn't. And so I don't want Nate Atkins on this roster. He was pathetic last year. Like, he was dropping balls, even when he came back injured. Obviously, he's banged up, and his blocking was just pathetic. I mean, it was just a bad overall performance from him last year, and it's just it's hard for him to redeem himself, if you will, right now.
I couldn't agree more. Keeping things on the offensive side of the ball, I do have another, it's not a sexy or exciting camp battle, but specifically this is just for how are they going to find a way to get Tyler Miller on this roster, because he, if for anyone who doesn't know, was brought in as a undrafted free agent from Iowa State. This man is 6'9", 335 pounds. He is an absolute unit, and I feel like it's going to be like him and Matt Parrott kind of playing it out.
Yeah,
who Matt Parrott is 6'6", and I do think just the young upside with Miller, no relation, is probably going to win out with that. So that'll be interesting to me to see, just because I would love a swing tackle who's 6'9". That would be fun.
Well, and you have Frank Crum that they've invested in,
and Frank Crum is also kind of in that ironclad, locked in on the roster. He's not going anywhere. Him and Palczewski.
And we touched on that. It's like the mark of a good roster when you're talking about training camp battles is when you're not talking about, well, who's your starting quarterback going to be? Who's your starting tight end going to be? Who's your starting corners going to be? Who's your starting free safeties going to be? Nose tackles, defensive linemen, pass rushers. Those are when you have those kind of questions, you're borderline playoff or just a playoff versus a Super Bowl contender team whose roster is just insanely deep. So when you're having these training camp conversations of swing tackles, I think it's great. And 2, I love the swing tackle competitions anyway, right? It's one where just the Frank Crum conversation, I think is interesting because he's the type of player, right? They easily could have moved on from him. He was an undrafted free agent, but clearly Zach Strief and company love him. So the offensive tackle, I think, situation is going to be, and maybe even the interior as well, is going to be one that's going to be fun to watch, Jordan.
I mean, Frank Crum has caught a touchdown pass in a playoff game.
He has.
I mean, and a pretty big one, if I'm being quite honest.
He's got better hands than Jerry Jeudy.
All right. You didn't have to go there.
No, for real, though. Have you guys seen some of the stuff coming out of Brown's training camp 7-on-7s?
I have not, actually.
It's bad.
What?
It's bad with Jerry Jeudy. He still doesn't work back to the quarterback. No. It was him and Shador going through drills and just completely. I mean, it was also a bad throw by Shador, but just doesn't even remotely attempt to work back and just completely biffs it. I don't know.
Did you see what? Speaking, and this isn't a Jerry Jeudy thing, but speaking of the Browns, did you see what Deshaun Watson said today?
Yeah, that he's not gonna like forgive I don't know. He said something or something along those lines.
No, I didn't see it.
I just scrolled past it. I just couldn't.
It said Deshaun Watson holds no ill will toward Cleveland despite the rocky tenure, and he believes Todd Monken offense can bring out his best.
Just no self-awareness.
That's never the thing, dude. That's not the problem.
Just
the problem is you're a horrible human being. You should probably be in jail. Not even probably. Anywho, back to the topic. all I'm saying is give me a jumbo package with Tyler Miller. That's all I want.
We actually didn't get a chance to talk about it much. Obviously, when you guys look at the undrafted pool, and this kind of still, I would just say, this kind of still falls in line of players that could make the 53, make the practice squad. And we know the Denver Broncos are one of the best teams, and this even goes pre-George Payton, pre-Sean Payton. The Denver Broncos in its history have been one of the best undrafted teams in terms of finding diamonds in the rough players or gems of these undrafted, free agent pools. I'll phrase it this way, because we mentioned his name earlier. Who are you guys most excited about that's not Taurine York?
I'll let Jordan go. I already waxed poetic about my guy.
Which guy?
He was the Tyler Miller, the offensive lineman.
Tyler Miller.
I mean, besides York?
Like I said, I made it a little bit difficult.
I mean, it is pretty difficult. I mean, I don't know, man. I don't want to say someone just to say somebody, but I guess if I have to pick somebody, I don't know. I think what? No, I just had his name right here. The wide receiver out of Virginia, Cameron Ross. Even though it's a stacked wide receiver room,
I thought you were going to say my name for a second.
Cameron Parker. I think he could do well in this roster. No, Cameron Ross out of Virginia. I even remember watching him play in the ACC. But he's an intriguing one just to see if maybe he can contribute special team wise. But, if I had to pick one that's not York or a Tyler Miller, I would for sure pick Cameron Ross.
Brandon, who would you choose?
I'm going to say
that's not Tyler Miller and that's not Taurine York.
I'm going to say someone that's going to make Cam very happy, and that's Deshaun McCulloch. I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name correctly. McCulloch from Nebraska, who's a 6'5" linebacker / edge player. He just has that rare blend of size and athleticism that you just don't see at linebacker. And he's just another one of those guys that they're throwing into those edge room battles. That's just like, okay, what's this guy got to do? Like he's kind of like, this is another reason I'm like, I don't know if Drew Sanders makes it, because he's kind of like the replacement Drew Sanders, where he's just like a freak athlete, and we'll see what they're able to get out of him. But to be able to move the way he does at that size is not natural.
Yeah. So this, to educate people a little bit, Deshaun McCulloch can play everywhere. He plays everywhere. It's almost like people almost say like what is it, like a Walmart version or like a Kirkland brand, version of someone. He's like the dollar store version of Isaiah Simmons. You hope it works out, but he only costs you $1, and I wonder if there was so much so, like, you had you had the connection of, Sean Payton, because, his dad, DeLon McCullough, played with Sean, and so they already kind of had this built-in connection. And frankly, like, McCullough, for as much as Nebraska gets a lot of hate, it is still a blue chip program. and he played for, at least at this point, 3 legitimate blue chip programs right now. He played with Indiana, he played with Oklahoma, and he played with Nebraska. Like those are 3 legitimate programs. And there were all reasons for it. Obviously, his dad has Oklahoma ties, so he played with Oklahoma. His dad was hired by Indiana, so he went to Indiana. Then his dad got promoted to the NFL to be an NFL coach. And then he was kind of like, doing his thing. And so he transferred over to Nebraska. I would say if you are really wanting to watch highlights of both Nebraska players that they signed, watch the tape of when they weren't with Nebraska. Because you'll see just how good their talent was. I mean, the Oklahoma tape, I will say specifically for as far as what you can see with him, is very tempting, and the freak of nature that he is. Dane Key, who's the brother of Devon Key, go watch his Kentucky tape. Mm-hmm. If you watch his Kentucky tape, and probably had he stayed at Kentucky or went to another school, he probably would have been drafted this last year based on his tape. He was considered one of the better portal wide receivers before going to Nebraska. I think those 2 Nebraska boys actually have a pretty decent shot to be on the practice squad.
McCulloch had, when he was at Oklahoma, he played like a mix of linebacker and safety. He had 30 tackles, 3.5 tackles for loss, and 3 pass breakups at 6'5", 200.
Like I said, dollar store Isaiah Simmons. Not Kirkland brand or the Isaiah Simmons. He's like a dollar store version of Isaiah Simmons.
He went from Oklahoma to Nebraska?
No, he went to Oklahoma to Indiana to Nebraska.
Oof.
I thought he started in Indiana.
No, he started out, I think, at Oklahoma. I think.
Oh.
Anyway, he went to those 3 teams. But yeah, Dinky's one of the other ones. But the 3 names, if you haven't seen the list, it was, I think, Mike List who listed it out. The 3 names who of the most value in terms of money, signing bonus, and everything is York, Tyler Miller, and Deshaun McCullough. So it kind of gives you an idea for maybe where they would want in terms of their practice squad candidates and everything. So,
for the record, that's not why I picked them. I didn't actually know that.
Yeah.
Now, Torrey and York should have been drafted 100%.
How literally was he not?
Because his only, I hesitate to say diminishing factor is he's short. He's not even short. He's just not tall. He's under 6 foot.
He's 5'11" and 2. It's weird. He's 5'11", but he's like 230. So like he's built like a tank, but he's he's actually built like Brandon. Except Brandon's like 6'5".
I am not Jack Reacher. I am not 6'5".
Anyway, go ahead, Brandon.
But no, Torrey New York is amazing. That's the only reason he wasn't drafted, is because he's small. I had to do air quotes again because it's like he's not even that small.
He was the captain for the he was the captain for the Texas A&M defense, and he was not drafted.
Nope.
Jordan, what do you have to say about York?
Oh wait, I think my connection is. Am I in a big delay?
I can hear you.
You might be in a big delay, or you need hearing aids at such a at a young age. I don't know what it is.
So I am on a delay.
I don't think so.
What?
No.
No.
No. Ignore Cam.
Okay. No. I mean, I should. My trust me. My Wi-Fi.
No, you're good.
Pretty bad the last week.
He's got the JMac Wi-Fi.
I hope J-Mac is watching. That's a classic. But about York, I mean, listen, I think York can seriously make an impact on this inside linebacker room. Like, I really do believe that. I hope, and I know we mentioned it earlier in the show, but if our linebacker of the future is Red Murdoch and York, I would be very, very pleased. I know York is a little bit undersized for the position, but I do think he can make it work out with the way he plays. So I would very much love that.
If you actually get a chance to, I'm trying to find it because there was an article that was done like way back in with A&M. I think it was like last year, but it was just like they did an article.
They were good. They just lost to Miami in the college football playoffs.
They were good, and they had a tight end that I never thought would be taken in the second round. That was taken in the second round, and named Borkacher. No, but there was an article done. I believe it was like back and they like the beginning of the year, and they talked about how cerebral York is for 20 years old, and like he was doing everything he could to be in the locker room and be in the film room and learning everything and soaking up everything as far as like the plays and understanding formations and everything that you wanted to see from a 19-year-old linebacker at that point for a team in A&M that was really surging under Mike Elko, right? Like, so the more it kind of was being described as like he really fit everything that they've been looking for. And so it's just, it really kind of still boggles me. And obviously I really might just be coming down to the size factor, the height factor a little bit, but it's just like, to quote John Gruden that he'd been saying all the time whenever he was on draft coverage, it's like, he's a football player. Like he is legitimately a football player. And I am shocked that for everybody that he was not drafted. And so maybe for Paul, is he fast enough to play strong safety? I don't know, but I would have to assume with the way that he was signed as with the Broncos, he was signed as a linebacker. That's, I just say, is much like a syllabus subject to change. So you never know.
Yeah, the biggest thing with York is like he's also he didn't run a 40, but his 20 and 3 gun were not the best. He just kind of seems like the biggest thing that I think is just like difficult with York, even though I love him and I want him, like I think he's gonna stick on the roster, is like him and Murdoch are kind of similar in that like I would say that York definitely played more in coverage at A&M, and he did a good job. But in the NFL, like they're both probably going to be thumpers, and he's going up against Red Murdoch, who has the FBS record for tackles. Like he's the absolute just unit, right? Like he's a machine. I don't know how that's going to shake out, but I think they are both kind of in that thumper role of just like amazing linebacker against the run. Coverage wise, I don't know, but it'll be interesting to follow and see how that develops. The thing that actually kind of makes it funny is like they're a little bit like Alex Singleton in that regard, in that like he kind of just gets bashed for his coverage ability or lack thereof, and he still does like a pretty decent job, all things considered, especially for his age. But I could see both of them being in that like conversation of Alex Singleton replacement.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's really interesting when you look at the Red Murdoch and everything, and you look at the way that he was evaluated. He's one of those players like a York that should have not been, drafted as late as he was, or not. It should not have been an undrafted free agent, but one of those players, for some reason, that always kind of slips through the cracks of a university, and are one of the best defensive players that the university's ever turned out, right? With Khalil Mack. And obviously Sean Dolak was one of those players last year who flew under the radar, went undrafted, and now he's with the Los Angeles Rams. And Red Murdoch is the same.
Yeah.
Red Murdoch.
Also, my apologies, Red Murdoch, all-time leader in forced fumbles, not tackles.
Which, by the way, if you guys weren't reading between the lines of what I posted on Twitter, I did dub him the nickname Daredevil. Because
that's so good. It's so perfect.
Because Red Murdoch Daredevil's red. You know, so
Well, also, what does the Punisher call him? Red.
right. So I do think there's a very real chance. That things happen. I will say when you kind of look back at this draft class, I want to talk about another positional battle, and I might make Jordan mad because you want to make sure that he gets his third safety love here. But what was the decision to draft Miles Scott, or I mean Miles?
Yeah, Miles Scott.
Miles Scott from Illinois, who's best friends with Pat Bryant, former wide receiver, converted to safety. This team loves Illinois. They love Illinois.
Yeah, we should still.
Brett Bielema has done a tremendous job with that program, and I guarantee you Wisconsin is drowning in their own tears for letting that man go. But I think we would be remiss if we didn't talk about one of those other training camp battles of safety 3, if you will, between J.L. Skinner, Miles Scott, and Devon Key as well.
Wasn't there an interview that came out that discussed why we are targeting Illinois so much? I don't remember
Luke
what
Evans,
specifically.
Luke Evans wrote an article about it. Yeah,
that's what it was.
Yeah.
Go ahead, John.
Yeah, we should transition to like a better program. But we the battle that in terms of that, like Key and Skinner are so vital to our special teams that they're gonna make the roster, in my opinion. They're not a candidate for whatever, but I just really, really hope JL Skinner can get a few snaps at safety, because I still feel like he hasn't been given the right or the I don't know how to word it, but I do feel like if we get a larger sample size with Skinner playing safety, especially with maybe one of our safeties out the door within the next couple years, I do believe Skinner can get into that role and play it well. But I know they drafted Miles Scott for a reason. Obviously, he was a team captain at Illinois, which is a staple whenever the Broncos do draft. In the Sean Payton and George Payton era, you have to be a team captain. So I do understand that, but I just don't see him jumping someone like a Devon Key or a JL Skinner right now. And also remember, our only outside free agent signing was Tyson Anderson from the Bengals. So he's also going to have to beat him out, and he's also a very good special teamer.
Right.
Bengals fans were pissed to lose him. He's like the best special. He was the best special teamer.
And it reminded me when we traded for John Franklin Myers, and every single Jets fan wanted to just burn down the organization. It felt like that with Tyson. It really, really felt like that.
Dude, that trade was literally made at gunpoint. You can't convince me otherwise.
I will say there's a world where Tyson Anderson is also this year's version of Sam Franklin.
I did think about that. It was a very, very, very similar deal.
Yeah. Where we all kind of expected Sam Franklin to make the team. We all expected him to make the team. And, lo and behold, he was one of the cuts, to trim down to 53. So there's a world where that happens, The one thing that is slightly different is Tyson Anderson appears to be a little bit of a better special teams player than Sam Franklin. But I think the thing that was weird was before Sam Franklin signed with Denver, he was well regarded as Carolina's best special teamer.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the better special teamers that was in the NFL. So I'm not saying that's going to happen, but maybe that is just something that would be worth watching as far as like Sam Franklin, the world of Tyson Anderson, where if they fall in love with guys like a Miles Scott or they, or a Devon Key and everything, it can happen. It can definitely happen. Brandon, you done fixing the
I
camera?
had to fix my camera. It looked like it was going to fall off the back of my monitor for a second there. Yeah, I did think about that connection. That was a little terrifying to see because it's just like it's literally the same exact situation with Sam Franklin. I don't know. We'll see how that pans out. I do think with Tyson Anderson, like he also is a safety, and like we need safety depth, and so I think that like dual availability of him to be able to play kind of in whatever role we would potentially need him in helps his case to potentially stick on the roster. So we'll see. But yeah, that definitely was like eerily similar in a bad way. I mean, maybe it was like they signed him. I literally, this could have been what happened. Like you signed two of the better special teamers from teams that are doing special teams well. It's kind of similar to that. Like you sign a player from a team you're about to play and kind of get all the intel you can and then cut them. I'm not saying that's what's happening, but it was weirdly similar.
Didn't Sam Franklin have some significant time with the Buffalo Bills or something like that, and he was doing decent, or something? And I think he even had like an interception or something, or like he also recovered a fumble or something. Like he was actually a pretty decent contributor.
Well, he's currently on the Bills. Was he on the Bills before?
I'm just trying to remember, but I just know that whether it was the team that he signed with, what is it? The team that he signed with, he ended up doing really well after the Broncos or something, or if he was like that next team. The other, obviously, signing this also could trigger is a JT Gray, because JT Gray was another one of those players who was a Sean Payton, New Orleans, connection, comes here to Denver and does not pan out at all. Like JT Gray was really bad. Like the special teams was really bad with Gray. And then he moves on, and then, well, lo and behold, he does not become a thing elsewhere. So I don't know. But I think that the most important thing that you can say there is just they value special teams a lot.
I was going to say, Cameron, that's giving Marquette King vibes. Don't do that.
Marquette King, wow.
And there's a Brendan Fraser blast from the past.
Jeez.
Move this man!
Anyway, so when you look at this team and you look at the way it's constructed, let's kind of talk about it from this side of things. We talked about like the battles. We talked about some of the surprises. Now, kind of like, what are you excited to see? And what are you excited to see that's not the fact that now we have gone into the third year of the Denver Broncos not needing a starting quarterback battle, and that Bo Nix is the starting quarterback for the Denver Broncos, and God bless Bo Nix.
That is awesome. That we don't have to worry about that no more. But also on the same wavelength, I also do want to see what potentially happens with the backup quarterback situation. And not saying that Jarrett Stidham is going to lose it, but there were rumblings before on how he may be a trade candidate if someone really wants to get him. That caught me by surprise. That just doesn't come out just to come out as news. Mm-hmm. There must be some type of smoke around it. And Sam Ehlinger did elect to stay in Denver when he had other opportunities for him to move up a depth chart somewhere else. So that was a bit interesting to me, in my opinion. And obviously with how he played in the last game and stuff like that, which unfair circumstances, but
right.
Still something to keep note of. And I do wonder if a team does want someone like a Stidham maybe for their backup quarterback, or
we would also probably want another quarterback in our system. So here's a hypothetical.
Uh-oh. Here
The
we go.
team, from all accounts, when you kind of heard Sean Payton talk about him, Spencer Rattler, it kind of felt like was a little bit on their radar as far as a player that they were pretty interested in.
This is true.
However, there's another quarterback who happens to be with that same team who probably should have never left Denver. And that would be Zach Wilson. So I would say if there's probably, and he plays with the Saints, obviously the Broncos have done a lot of work with the Saints. Maybe they kind of flip.
I can see it.
I think the thing is, like, I don't. My thing is, like, as much as there's probably going to be conversations about it, I don't see them moving on from Stidham.
I don't think so either.
But I will say, you know, I think there's only one person that I would rather have in that building as a backup, and it would be Zach Wilson.
That's really interesting. I never thought about that before. You think they just do a straight up flip? I don't know. That's interesting. Yeah. I mean,
the contract,
you got the connection, but yeah.
I don't know. I just found it weird that came out.
It is a little strange.
It just came out.
But I mean, a backup quarterback that has like deep playoff experience is
as bad as it was.
Even if it was terrible, like it was also in the elements. I mean, I don't know.
Yep.
So I don't know. That's literally the only thing I could actually have, you know, or see happen. So, because if you do move on from Stiddy, there's only one other quarterback at this point that would really know the system, and frankly, who did pretty well in that first year that he did here and shined in preseason, and it was Zach Wilson. Mm-hmm. So he's really the only one that I would kind of like entertain. Although Spencer Rattler would be very interesting.
I don't see there's any way that they would get rid of Spencer Rattler. Like,
I don't know.
Maybe, but
Tyler Shuck should have won the Rookie of the Year if you talk to Saints fans.
Well, but as a backup,
he's not even better than Cameron.
Talk about a guy who knows the system and like could be a legitimate spot starter for you. Like, they're not getting rid of him. But Zach Wilson's interesting. To me, I'm most excited to see like what does this offense look like with Davis Webb? Like, what is that transition? Yeah. How different is it? That'll be fun.
Where do you put that as far as like, you know? So we talked about like the training camp battles as far as like when you're ranking them. When you think of like the overarching questions for this team, it has to be number
one with the bullet.
I was gonna say it has to be number one with like a really like big bullet on there.
Yeah, easy.
Yeah. And I do want to preface it this way for people that were criticizing, and this is even when it happened, criticizing about the Davis Webb taking over play calling duties for Sean Payton. We're going to kind of bring up some of the same conversation that we said at the time, but it's like, this is still Sean Payton's offense. This is just, and you even heard Ben DiNucci talk about this on Kay Adams today, but it's like, this isn't so much of like, is this going to be Davis Webb's offense? Obviously, that's going to be a question we still probably will ask ourselves because we don't necessarily know that answer in air quotes, but you would be hard pressed to not assume that this is still going to be Sean Payton's offense. It is still going to be Payton's offense. It's just one of the biggest things that's going to be answered. And DiNucci talked about this, is that the verbiage will be shorter. You know, the formations will be a little bit, maybe not the formations, but the verbiage, the playbook is going to be shortened down a little bit so that you are actually out of the huddle between the 15 and 18 seconds time frame. So you are able to diagnose coverage, blocking formations, etc. That's like the MVP answer that you want as a Bronco fan, because that was one of the biggest things for 2 years, right? Like everybody talks about last year. Well, it was the thing in the first year as well. And so I think that for that, it's like one of the biggest things. So the thing I just say is like, it is still Sean Payton's offense. You just have Davis Webb being the voice of reason for the players that are in that room. And it also goes to show you how highly they think of Davis Webb right, to actually hand over those duties for it. And then who knows? It'll still be Payton's offense, but I think the thing that would be creative if they really love him that much, do you see extensions off of plays that are Payton, right? Because that's a big thing, even with Kyle Shanahan. What made him so just this bright mind when it came to the Shanahan offense, and even Sean McVay, is like, you're in the Shanahan offense. You've done a lot of things with the Shanahan offense, but you are building extensions off of the Shanahan offense and almost like making it your own version of it. It'll be really interesting to see if Davis Webb actually does that.
And I'm gonna, and that's also my number one as well. Is I'll see how different is the offense going to look like with Davis Webb calling the plays. But just to be different, I'm gonna be a little bit different here. I want to see if, and hear me out here, because a lot of people love to rave about our offensive line and how dominant they are and stuff like that.
They are still pretty good, though.
Which no one's saying that,
Yeah.
they're not good or whatever, but I do believe that, Bo makes them better than what they are. And we have not seen them be dominant in the run game. And I would love to see how, if that shifts this upcoming season, because it needs to. This offensive line, I know all the numbers are going to tell you that they're great, this, and that. But when you saw them last year when they didn't have Bo, they didn't look great. And everybody,
that's a really good one.
People love to say, "Oh, Bo has the best offensive line in the league," and this, and that. They're good, but they're not dominant like how people think they are. And it shows up in the run game, and it shows up when they don't have Bo as the quarterback getting the ball out fast. So I would love to see if they can be actually dominant this upcoming season.
I mean, I think we can all agree that the Broncos offensive line of this one is better than 2015. But one of the marks of what made Peyton Manning so good, we talked about as Bronco fans. We even talked about as Bronco fans when he was with the Indianapolis Colts. What made him so good was that he was like the best in terms of getting out quick with that football or avoiding sacks. It's a different way to look at it, because obviously you're talking about a pocket passer, but when you have the quick decisions, getting the ball out fast, it helps mitigate a lot of those offensive line issues. And with Bo and you're a mobile quarterback, it's just another extension of minimizing a lot of the offensive line damage. Or I'd almost argue it also makes you a little bit of a better offensive line, because you do have to block about a half second longer, if you will. I'm gonna probably do one that not a lot of people probably will bring up, if you will. But it's one that I've always been kind of curious of. And I don't know if it's very high ranking, if you will, for some fans, but it's one that I'm kind of tracking for myself, and it's regarding the playmaker room, and it's scramble drill. And I think that the one thing that you're starting to see this team be better and better each year with, and that's because of Bo, and it's kind of like an extension of, to a certain degree, the offensive line being better, if you will, or whatever. It's scramble drill for the wide receivers and everything is like, because I will say, like, one of the best scramble drill wide receivers on this football team is Pat Bryant. You will always see him come back to the football and fight for the football and make himself a viable weapon for Bo, knowing the fact he's coming back to the football. But I think that the one part of it for Sutton that made it a little bit of a trouble with him, that he had been kind of a thing in the past, was you really wouldn't necessarily see him fight for yards, right? And so I would love to see a little bit more scramble drill with some wide receivers fighting for a little bit more yardage, being a little bit more aggressive. And I think that a lot of the reason I think is that's one of the biggest additions of Jalen Waddle, is I think you'll get a chance to see that a little bit more with that. So I think that having that, I think, would be really valuable, because at that point, when you talk about the scramble yards and everything, you're talking about extra yards after catch. You're talking about extra first downs that you can possibly have as an offense. And this even goes even to the tight end room. And this is also too like even an extension of guys like Evan Ingram and Justin Jolie. Is like those guys, I think, for Jolie specifically, like one of the things that I think is he got a lot of hate in the draft process, but it's one where he's not really like this blazing athlete, but he's remarkable with his hands, coming back to the football and fighting for those tough yardage, right? And I think that those are going to be some of the winning plays that earns him more playing time. And so I think that it's going to be very interesting. It's going to be very interesting to see, do you see a little bit more of a physical presence like that where they're fighting for more yardage than they did kind of a year ago?
They're gonna have to start hot. That's all I know.
Well, yeah, that's a good one. They had to.
Well, however that shows up, more physicality. I don't know, but you gotta gel quickly with this.
We talked about it. We talked about it last week, but Welders fans is asking after the first 5 games, the thoughts. I think it's the 6 games, but I think you and I, the three of us, said they have to at least go 3-3 in that
minimum.
Yeah, you can't come out of that with a losing record.
No.
I
mean, you can still make it doable coming out of it with a losing record, but it's just, but it's one where, yeah,
it's always possible, but it's just going to be like you're getting out of a hole that you dug.
Yeah, we're praying for you, Big E. We are definitely sending our prayers for you, man. I mean, definitely some unfortunate news. But yeah, we're in your corner, and we definitely believe in the power of prayer as well. So yeah, you are definitely in our thoughts and prayers, and I'll put you in too with the church that I go to as well.
Me too.
But yeah, I mean, any other thoughts as far as like maybe things we didn't get a chance to touch on, or things that just kind of like right off the dome, that maybe you guys didn't think about, like maybe how we don't miss Jerry Jeudy here in Denver, or how maybe he's not necessarily the best wide receiver in Cleveland anymore, and that Casey Concepcion is actually better than him. Denzel Boston is better than him.
Denzel Boston's for sure not. For sure not. For sure not.
No, but any final thoughts and stuff?
Well, I think this was brought up in chat. I don't remember who threw this out there, but awesome. Thank you, John. We'll pray for you. I think one of the biggest just signs of how well-rounded of a football team this is, besides going into this offseason and not really having many holes, is going into training camp and there not really being many battles to watch because they're kind of all solidified. Exactly. Yep. When the most exciting camp battle is wide receiver 4 swing tackles, you're a great team. Exactly it.
Yeah, we touched on that. And I think that's why, when we kind of touched on those battles, it's like the swing tackle, the linebacker is, I think, low-hanging fruit because it's something we want these players to supplant them this year and be those starters. But it's just not going to happen. But it's one where, what are they going to shake out in battle? They're going to be a third linebacker by season's end.
Mm-hmm. It's worth bringing up again.
Yeah. So no, I think it rings true. And I think that's ultimately what makes it really a very interesting one.
And then there's me, who still wants Alex Forsythe to be the starting center.
I mean, me too, bud. Me too.
It's going to be a little bit hard given the fact that Wattenberger got that extension.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be a lot. We obviously didn't get a chance to talk about the defensive line. So probably one of the questions I think that all of us are probably wondering is, the loss of John Franco Myers. How big of a loss is it? We'll talk about that more, as we kind of get closer. This is the introduction 101 training camp battle roster, bubble type stuff, if you will. And I think once July rolls around, you'll kind of see us talking a little bit more about, those types of, depth chart and stuff like that.
They'll be interesting for sure.
Yeah. But nonetheless, the Denver Broncos are a great football team once again, and hell froze over.
Looks like hell froze over.
And with that, we wish you guys a great rest of the night. Thank you guys so much for watching the Mainly Broncos stream here on the MHRT network, as well as the Mainly Broncos YouTube channel. Make sure you hit the subscribe button for the MHRT network page. There's a join feature. There's a lot of different features that are on there. You guys can click that join button, however it is that you guys feel like it. We really appreciate your guys' support. Hit the subscribe button for the Mainly Broncos page. And, of course, follow the boys. Follow Brandon at Brandon Miller PO. Follow Jordan at Jordan 2 Lopez. And follow myself at Cameron Parker PO. And without further ado, God bless Bo Nix.
Let's go Broncos! God bless Bo Nix!
Fast lane when I pass in the street, bag of money in the passenger seat. Tempo's been asking for me on the road from the west to the east. Way up, I might never come down, cause the coast racking up the flame out.